Hello, welcome. I believe I'm live now. Hope my sound is good. Alright, let's see, live stream announcements here. Okay, so I have two options for what I'm doing today. Surprise! They're both little paintings from the same project. This one I'm doing a whole bunch of ink work first, for reasons I'm happy to discuss. And then this one is one of my little 6x6 aqua board. Little teeny tiny studies that I've been really enjoying doing. Let me see, where do I put? Linkies. Linkies here. And Linkies there. Ta-da. Oh, I should. Actually. Where did that go? Or actually, you know what? There's an easier way to do that. I'm gonna go put this new... I'm gonna put the references for this one. So the references for this guy are already on Discord. I'm gonna go put the references for this one on Discord real quick so that people can help me decide what we're doing today. So this is what I've been working on the last little while. This is what I was working on last week. I'm happy to switch back and forth, but I figured I'd get this out as an option. Let's see, Discord. No, not this. Where did that go? In here. Can I? Hi, how are you? So you get a bit of a choice. Here's what I was working on before stream. Here's last week's stream. I can swap what I'm doing, or I can not swap what I'm doing. The references for both of them are in Discord. I think I also have a twig reference, like a physical twig reference for this one, buried in my luggage somewhere. Yeah, this is gonna be fun, because there's actually layers, like, there's one main branch, and then there's layers underneath, and I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go from the top layer being inked, and then I'm gonna do a layer underneath that is graphite, and I think I'm gonna do the needles, I'm not sure, I think I'm gonna dull them down with like a granulating black or like a graphite tone. So they'll still be colored but not as bright because I really want to focus on all the stuff growing on top. I'm happy to do either, or switch and do both. I was about to put this thing away and then I was like, you know what, this could also be a live stream. As long as it fits on the desk, right? And I've been doing a whole bunch of these little pieces. This is also interesting because when I started doing these tree bark paintings, I used to do a lot more inking first and then adding paint. These days I usually start with paint and the ink is a later addition. And so part of this is because of how detailed this was and how I wanted, like which parts I wanted to stick out, I decided to ink it pretty much all ink first. I will need to go back and add some ink later, but get the whole thing inked first because there's all of these like interactions between needles, and I am gonna have, I believe, probably a background going all the way down. So I need to get all those lines blocked out first. But I'm interested to see how it's going to affect the finished result, because my recent pieces have been, there's like an increasing similarity, an increasing style emerging. And I'm wondering whether that'll persist, even though I've sort of changed dramatically the order of operations here. I suspect yes, actually, but... Maybe in some cases, I do want to, I have been for a couple years now, interested in, first of all, just more interesting compositions, but also not leaning on white backgrounds as a crutch. So there's the time and place for white backgrounds, but not just having a plain background just because it's easier. Because it really is easier. And in a lot of cases, it's just easier to have a white background, right? Now, there are cases where it just doesn't, like a background just isn't serving. And so one of them is when I'm painting these very busy branches and I want the branches to be the star of the show, if I add then a leafy background, and it's all bright greens and it's got all sorts of texture and color to the leaves in the background itself, it does sort of distract from the, hey, look at what you missed this part. Which I'm trying to do with focusing on tree bark, which is the part that usually gets overlooked, right? Like, so if you're adding that, in that case, removing the background, removing the other stuff that you see around the tree bark does allow you to focus just on the tree bark. Now, one way to do that is to just zoom in so that you only have tree bark, right? So that you've got a whole paper that's, you know, you don't see the edges of the tree. It's just the tree bark. But then you're limiting yourself in terms of composition. So I have been playing with what are the different ways that I can do that without losing the interest of my main focus, without losing it to other stuff. So this is an interesting example where there are a lot of needles. Now, looking at the reference, and also when I was looking at, you know, the physical reference, when I was looking at the physical tree, it very much was like from the angle I was looking at it from, the actual, like, the branches were more interesting than the needles coming out of them. But I feel like I want to, in this case, I am keeping the needles in. I think they're sort of essential to understanding what you're looking at. So I'm not removing them, and because this is a branch like partway through a tree crown, so there's lots of other branches, and you actually see, you know, more branches, more needles, grass underneath. On some angles you actually see sunlight coming through. And that's all interesting, but I don't think that it actually detracts from the branches, or it doesn't have to, so long as you're careful with how you manage the colors. So in this case, I think I am going to, yeah, just see whether I can control the background, but it removes, yeah, so, and I feel like a lot of what I'm exploring is like seeing the ecosystem as a whole, rather than it pulling out an individual, like, oh, here's one lichen, or here's one tree devoid of anything that's around it, that's growing on it, that's whatever. It's like, what if we viewed plant subjects or lichen subjects, as heroes of their own story, but what if we viewed ecosystems as their own character, like as their own subject. You know, no, like this isn't a supporting cast for something else. anyway, yes, the short answer is yes, I'm adding backgrounds. The longer answer is I'm thinking a lot about backgrounds, and still a lot of my stuff is still not going to have backgrounds, but I have done a bunch recently that do have backgrounds. So this obviously does have a background. This is all just, you know, blurred out background, and the only sort of this zigzag form is going to be the main subject, basically. Like, these are actually also branches that come out of it, but like my main composition is this form. So here we're going to have like a lot of detail, and then this is going to be sort of tied back in. Like with birds photography, if you've seen one blurry background photo of a bird, you've seen most of it. Well, right, so there is definitely an established, like a botanical art style, and in some cases maybe that's something that you want to emulate, but it's very much a like, well, people are choosing that not necessarily for the like, oh, this is what serves the science best, which, you know, supposedly was the idea behind, oh, well, you're painting a subject without its background, distracting background, is you're focusing on the structure and features of a specific plant. That is fine but that's, I mean, that's not only a very limited view of the purpose of art, but it's also, I think, a very limited view of the purpose of, you know what? What if yeah, okay, I'm actually going to do it this way. Make this one the branch coming out. So I'm going to bring it a little closer so that I have a little bit more of that. And this here is coming out into the foreground. So this will probably get actually reinforced with some I'm gonna... Hello! I'm getting philosophical about backgrounds. Again. Thunderstorms and clouds with silver or gold lining. Ooh, very cool. say I started this during the hangout yesterday. After my camera was starting to run low and I plugged it in, I decided to switch to this. I also got an email from the city, so I have an exhibition opening at City Hall in November, and I got a email from the city prompting me for a promotional image, and they wanted it in landscape format, and I'm about 5x7, I think, is what it's going to be cropped to, and I was looking at which pieces I have available, and actually a lot of them for this exhibition are in a portrait orientation, or they don't crop well. Like, some of them are longer in landscape, but they don't crop well. And those ones are actually older as well, so I was kind of questioning what I wanted to send them and decided, you know what if I have until the 15th to provide that for the exhibition postcards. What if I just get this piece done that I was planning on getting done anyway? What if I just use this one? So now I want to get this done in the next few days so that I can get a good photo of it and have this usable for the exhibition. I'm also kind of trying to measure how long I take to do things. Gobbler, you had asked about pricing on one of my larger pieces. I will point out that there are I've made that into a series of 25 limited edition prints at full scale, which may be the recommended way. I believe they might be a couple hundred Canadian, so not that expensive. The challenge is going to be getting it to you. I believe I can roll them, but that is a 22 by 30 painting, and the original is on panel. There's also a custom frame on it. Whatever. It will be for sale. I still need to sort out my pricing on everything, but my pricing needs to change because it was the last couple years I'd done up a price chart for all of my recent On the Skin of Giants paintings, and the prices were kind of insanely high because I was trying to be fair to how much time I spent on them. But in retrospect, I was just extremely slow working because of my own health issues. And now that I'm past those, I am working a lot faster. So a lot of my original pricing is getting cut back to about 60% of what it once was, in order to actually be in line with sort of other artists in the same general market that I want to be in, but also suddenly that seems a lot more doable because I'm working at a reasonable pace. So, yeah. So these smaller originals they're going to be sold framed because they get frames in the matching wood. It's pity taking good photos is difficult because they are so elusive. By the time I grab the camera and set it up, it's shifter gone. Oh, the cloud formations, yeah. Yeah. So I do fairly regular exhibitions. This is at Kitchener's City Hall. So City Hall in my city has a they call it the Rotunda Gallery. Basically their main hall is in a sort of circular formation. So there's an inner area where they have events, and then there's a outer hall area that has seating and stuff, and a big panoramic gallery wall. Here in Canada we have something called CARFAC, which is sort of, I believe they are a governmental organization that advocates for artists and sets prices for exhibitions. So it's not like, ideally in a public exhibition, the exhibitor is paying the artist. So this will be a funded exhibition, a public exhibition where I get paid to exhibit by the city, which is cool. They are a non-standard gallery. Like, this isn't an art gallery, this is City Hall, so they pay a little bit less than like an actual art gallery would, but it's still a really great opportunity. They are right downtown. They get a fair bit of foot traffic, especially during events, and my exhibition will be up during the biggest event of the year. Here we're in what was formerly Berlin, Ontario. It's now called Kitchener because stuff happened during the Second World War, but we have a huge German population, and so we have a Christkindl market, which is the biggest City Hall event of the year, where they have vendors. So that'll be kind of neat to have my exhibition up during that. And then I've got a break because I believe that my next big exhibition, I mean, I'm doing like art shows, like art fairs, that I'm going to be registering for next year, but my next big exhibition won't be until 2027 probably. So I'll have a bit of a break from gallery exhibitions, from gallery shows, which is nice. I mean, I'll probably still do a few small ones, but as far as big solo exhibitions with public funding, that'll be my last until 2027. Yeah. So confused here. Okay, so then I can have this over here. I started a big monochrome gouache landscape today, but somehow I didn't think it through that mixing the white into the black would change the color temperature of the black from warm to white. Yeah, it would. I really don't like it. Thinking about scrapping and maybe starting over. Okay, cool. Would you start over like working more transparent, or are you trying to incorporate that cool white effect? That has definitely been one of my challenges with working with gouache or any kind of opaque media, is that balance of, okay, but when I add white, it changes the color temperature, so how much of this is transparent versus how much is opaque, and how am I, yeah. Debating if I should do it digitally to figure out the details. I mean, you can also just thumbnail it, like, especially if you have extra paint, just do a bunch of thumbnails to figure out your basic colors and temperatures. The composition is good, but it's a busy forest scene. I need to invent something simpler details. Okay. I meant, in terms of, like, warmer and cooler tones with values, like if you do want to work with white and black gouache, where you want to preserve a warm white versus where you want to, like, you can play with that color temperature. I mean, but also, like, keep in mind, I am not even remotely a competent gouache painter, so all of this is, like, theoretical. Theoretically, you could do this. As far as, like, am I able to do this? No. Yeah, I really cannot, I can't wrap my brain around, wait, you add white? No. Then you have to treat white like a color, you have to treat black like a color. What? It's so confusing, so many things to keep in mind. Okay, do I have more from this side? Not really, huh? I'm just gonna have to invent this. What merely makes it complicated that painting transparently and then adding white will have an ugly effect. It's like having different lights and texture. So yes, you're right. Thinking like white is a color to deal with is tricky. Yeah, so I have a really giant painting that I exhibited partially, like a quarter done, to be honest. And I have another exhibition coming up, and I suspect that it is going to be exhibited still a quarter done. Over a year from the past exhibition. Because I keep looking back at it and like, I just don't know how to deal with this, and I don't have the energy to devote to figuring it out. It looks okay as it is, but I can, it shows in some of my videos. I've got early process of painting that where I throw down a whole bunch of blue in the background, blue and yellow and what have you. Somewhat similar to what I'm doing with this piece. This is a silver maple, that one's an oak, but it's this, but instead of being, this is an 11 by 14, I believe, and that one, so this down here, you can see that I put down a wash of blue and yellow, and then I started building this up. Now, a couple of things make this work here. First of all, these washes are very light. And secondly, this is aqua board, so I can scrape stuff away really easily. So that worked out, this is working out really well here. But in that other piece, it's on paper laminated to panel. It is 30 by 44, I believe. It's a double imperial sheet. It might be 30 by 48. I may have actually rounded it up to 48. Anyway, it's about a double imperial sheet. And it's this huge thing. And I put down a lot of color initially because I thought it would make my life simpler, and then as I started adding things, I realized that I knocked out too much of my whites and that I was going to have to start adding white back in. And so then I am working with gouache. I mean, really, I'm working with transparent watercolor plus white. But man, is it this whole extra thing to worry about. And so I've got one section that's done and the rest is very, very loose. And it looks okay. It's kind of interesting. I have people who have told me, oh, I actually like it this way and it's better. Ultimately, I showed it that way because I had an exhibition that came up that was planned very, very sort of suddenly. There was a change in management at the gallery I was showing at, so I thought that, like, I had booked my exhibition a couple years earlier, but then there was a change in management and I couldn't set up with the new management when the new exhibition dates were going to be. They just weren't answering me, so eventually I gave up. And then I'd got back in touch with them. They said, yes, you can have an exhibition, whatever, we'll get back to you. Then they still didn't get back. So I'd kind of given up on that exhibition. I was just moving on to doing other things when they gave me a 6 weeks notice that I had an exhibition coming up, which is not what you want when you have absolutely nothing ready for an exhibition. Like, I have an exhibition now opening in, 9 weeks, and that's difficult enough, but I've known about that for over a year. And because I had the previous exhibition last year, there is some overlap between what's getting exhibited. So there's a whole bunch of new pieces that I'm making for this exhibition, including what I'm working on right now, both of these pieces. And the one I showed you earlier, all of those are like new stuff that's going into this exhibition. But some of the stuff from the previous exhibition, about half of the previous exhibition, maybe under half, maybe about a third of the previous exhibition, I am going to reuse for this exhibition in some form. But, yeah. Even this is feeling a little crazy because exhibition prep is always a little bit crazy. have to get a full listing of everything I'm exhibiting a month before the exhibition date, so all the pieces I'm exhibiting, sizes and prices, which means I have a month to figure out, like I can still finish some stuff afterwards, but I have a month to figure out what all is going into the exhibition, and have it sized, like all a name and price list so that they can have everything ready, so that they can print me some labels. Yeah, and so I need to go through the pieces I have already, figure out which I want to exhibit, and then what I have time to do now. Also, because these are all paintings of local tree species, I'm trying to match the frame to the species of tree. So, you know, if it's white pine, then it gets a white pine frame. If it's, you know, green ash that's been attacked by emerald ash borer, then ideally it's a green ash frame that has ash borer tracks in it. So that's all fun stuff. Jordan does my framing for me, so there's that. Some of my works are on paper and will need to be laminated to their finished panel. I have some stuff that didn't make it into the exhibition last year because in the preparation I kind of ruined it a little bit that I need to revisit. So anyway, a whole bunch of decisions to make in the next little while, and then get everything ready for exhibition. Lots of fun. Oh, that's kind of blurry. I have some Schminke gouache, but I don't have the energy to buy a good ceramic palette. So I just keep adding white, mostly titanium, to various palettes when I feel experimental. I also dedicated my Rosa palette to this. Yes, so I will say that I have a few palettes that have been, shall we say, contaminated with white, where I started adding white to them and it turns out that it actually works just fine to use watercolor as gouache if you just add white. Now you need to keep on adding fresh white. Like, that is my main challenge. Now I will point out that, like, as far as buying a nice palette, a ceramic plate from the thrift store is a palette. Here's a palette. Now, granted, I mix colors by just making a big mess on the plate and then picking out the colors I want, which is a choice, and I realized not everyone likes working that way. I totally feel you on the being a constant beginner with the white. That's how I feel about it as well. In storage and covering them from dust. That is absolutely a valid concern, yes. Having drawers that they sit in helps a little. When they get too dusty, I just wash them. But then again, that also feeds into my just trying not to be precious about my materials. I did at one point, let's see if I've got this handy. Where did that go? Here. Does this have its? Where's the insert for this one? Okay, that is not the right one. So I have this palette from Arte Miranda. Ay, that is putting up on this corner. So this is one of those little Spanish palettes. You can get it from Arte Miranda. It's pretty affordable. This was back in the day when I saw some. Oh, this was back in the day when I was like reading random blogs, and you'd find out things. So apparently this is like what every art supply store in Spain and only Spain sells these, and every artist in Spain and only Spain had one of these at the time. This was like 6-7 years ago. And these are just a tin that has this insert in it, that has like fairly large wells. This one is my watercolor one. I do have one that I had put gouache into. I got two. It took a whole bunch of searching to figure out someplace that sold them and would ship them to Canada for an affordable price. They were oddly out of stock at Artemidanda when I found them, so there was a wait. There were a whole bunch of people interested locally, so I got one for myself. I got two for myself and one for a friend here and whatever. But they're kind of great because they have these great big wells, which I really appreciate, which makes them also like somewhat more usable for gouache if you're going to, if you want to put in, yeah. Of course, I filled a gouache one and then I let it sit for so long that the gouache was just crumbling out. And so I don't know that I actually did wash it out, but I'm going to, I think. Yeah, let's see what state this is in, because if I recall, I really made a real mess out of this one. Ay. Yeah, so you can see that this one is crumbling out. I may leave it actually, it's not that bad. Maybe it's usable. Whatever, so I have a gouache palette. I'll see, I keep signing up for things. What is it? Justin Donaldson is an artist who works primarily in gouache and runs a gouache course that I started at some point a few years ago when I was really ill and never finished. And he's doing another live version of the course, so I was going to start that. Then that was a couple weeks ago, so I'm already sort of behind, except that I did do the couple weeks the first time around. So I may revisit that. I do have my gouache, as it turns out, set up here, plus other gouache. We'll see whether this re-wets at all, or whether I need to start fresh. But I do like these guys for gouache. I follow Sarah Burns, which keeps pulling me back to gouache. There's a lot of artists who do really cool stuff with gouache, and I feel like it would really help me. It's one of these things where it's like, I don't do gouache not because, like, largely the thing stopping me from working more in gouache is that is like lack of competency, is the fact that, yeah, perpetual beginner. And so I guess similar to my feeling with backgrounds, where it's just like, okay, well, I don't want to be limited in what I do by lack of ability. So at some level I feel like I kind of want to invest some time into learning gouache. Of course, everything always comes up at the same time, right? Like, there's never enough time to do all the things that I want to do. So right now, on the one hand, I'm like trying to be laser focused on show prep. On the other hand, it's like, oh, the Wild Wonder conference is coming up. I should attend that. And also, I want to do this gouache course, and also I have these other things to catch up on. And so I do need to prioritize the show, because, you know, it's a commitment that I've made. Can't really back out of. Yeah. Actually, you know what? I found some stickers, and I need to figure out which is which with the watercolor and gouache palettes here. So I'm going to put a sticker on here. This can be the sticker for the gouache. So this is Helena's. This is a tree paintings. I want to do a tree trunk study series landscapes. I want to go back to pen and ink. Yeah. Yep. Okay, so we're gonna put this on here. There we go. It's by Helena Smythe, who I really admired. I purchased one of her prints, and I was going to frame it, and then I found the reference photo for this, which is not by her, and now I'm a little bit annoyed, so I don't know if I'm actually gonna frame it, because it's not open source, and it's not by her, and it's very obvious where she got the reference photo. Not a great thing. Paper is absolutely atrocious, so I scanned them. Yeah, that's my issue with a lot of these things. It's like, okay, well this would be kind of neat to like practice watercolor techniques if you had worthwhile watercolor paper, but like how are you going to practice watercolor techniques on terrible paper? Printing on watercolor paper is always a fun little challenge too. I tried, my printer only uses water-soluble inks, so it's not an option. Yeah, so you need either a pigment printer or a laser printer. And if you have a laser printer, then the mechanisms need to be clean because the laser ink itself will repel water. So you need the, like, it has to be set right. Sorry, toner, not ink, but Okay, I am switching gears. I'm gonna work on this for a moment. I have a laser printer that technically can print on watercolor paper, but the feed doesn't like it very much, so it's finicky. And not fun. Okay, let's see. Back to this thing. Let's give this some... No, that's not what I wanted on that page. There we go. Let's see here. 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 Does that give you a view of all the things? Let's go back to this way so I can view replies. And okay, that gives me a moment to, hello. Where did I put, there. Okay. There's a little mushroomy guy here. Let's get him. Da-da-da. Actually going to add a few of those because that seems cool. I'm also going to add in some bluer areas because there's these bigger foliose lichen things just sort of spread out in between all this moss, and so I'm gonna make sure that I've got a bunch of those marked out so that then I can paint around them. It's gonna make it a little bit easier rather than leaving just gaps. get another view. Here we go. There's another view. This can go over here. Welcome back. So I decided to switch gears because I was going a little bit cross-eyed on my ink work. So we'll just freshen up with some of this. So I've got my palette in full frame. Since you'd mentioned you're interested in how I make sense of these big mixes. Now I will note that because I'm working on Aquaboard, that allows me a little bit more freedom as far as putting down paint in places that I may choose to lift it back out again. So for example, these mosses, if you look at the reference photos, actually these reference photos aren't the best for it, but these mosses have these very thin little orange stamens that come out, and so some of these areas are going to be more brown and lighter. And if I was doing this in watercolor, I would need to either mark those areas out. Well, sorry. If I was doing this in watercolor, I might be a little bit more careful about, or sorry, on watercolor on paper, I might be a little bit more careful about not putting paint where it doesn't belong, like not over painting areas. Whereas here I know that I can lift almost anything out. The truth is these little fertile stalks here are so thin that even on paper I might actually cut them out with an X-Acto. Which is, yes, I know, scary, but really worth it in some cases. Anyway, but basically I just put down all my colors on a paper as I go, or paper on a palette. My goodness. And then I adjust one way or another, and then when I need more of a color, I just pick it up off of the palette. If I need to mix more of something, then I do. Sorry, I know that's like a really broad and non-specific explanation there. I'm happy to answer questions. Maybe that's the better way to approach this. As to what's going on this messy palette, but yeah. It works for me. I always found that trying to make specific mixes and have them, you can't really see if you have like in a little well. So I used to try to use like, you know, one of those palettes with like the tiny little wells to make each mix, and especially if you've got more paint in it, you can't really see the color of what's going to come out, so you have to keep on testing it, and then hopefully you made enough, because if you run out, then you have to remix it. And I always found that a little bit challenging to work with, so this works better for me. Well, right now either or, because this is on aquaboard, so I could just, you know, start picking paint up off of here and paint it onto something else. I mean, to be honest, for large washes, what I do is I actually, in that case, I tend to actually use paint from the tube, and I will put a dollop of paint down right on the edge of the plate and do big washes that way. Like, I'll put a dollop of paint on the end, add a whole bunch of water, and then I have like a big pool. So the palette will tend to evolve over the course of a painting. I also reuse the same palette between paintings. So there's this sort of back and forth that tends to happen, where like at the beginning when I'm starting a painting, this will end up like bigger areas, and then as I work more detail into a painting, it gets more and more picked over basically, and more subtle changes around it. Okay, I need scrap fabric. That's what I want more of. More Nicolazo yellow. I want especially up in here, over here. Let's get some more of that yellow in there. So in this case, I am going to end up carving out basically some of the other color, making it reappear. See ya. Bye. I wonder who I'm competing with, time slot wise. Might not be art related. Yeah, for sure. Well, and the thing is, like, people have different interests too, so, like, you know, there's a few of us who know each other as creators who try to coordinate, but in terms of, like, you know, each person has their own, there's a Venn diagram of you know, who watches any given stream, and it's kind of impossible to completely eliminate overlapping with everything someone else might watch, right? Nugget started her stream today about an hour before yours. I jumped over to yours. Yeah, I'm not staying here while drawing another. So I'm going back to good old measure and compare. Learning to paint gestures it does really change how you look at the body. The line of action tutorial is very, very compressed. When I was, oh gosh, in high school, I did like weekend program at the art gallery where they took us through a whole bunch of different art practices, and we did have figure drawing as one of the modules, I guess. And there's a whole bunch of like little tips and tricks that sort of stuck out with me from that. So I've done life drawing on and off ever since, with like very little formal background, but some of the stuff that was introduced there, weirdly, all these decades later, is still, what stuck out to me with figure drawing to this day. Doesn't really help me see the proportions, which is my biggest weakness. Yeah, so I feel like a lot of seeing proportions is like stripping away what you think you know about. It's this, I've got notes for a either whatever it turns into a blog post or a video where it's like conflicting art advice, where it's like draw what you see but also don't trust your lying eyes. So there's like draw what you see, not what you think you see, but also to paint things like faces, you do actually want to have a structure, an understanding of how a human is put together. So it's this conflicting, like on the one hand draw based on what you know, on the other hand forget what you know and just paint based on what you see. So in terms of like you have a human in a pose, to get the dimensions right, you can either copy exactly what you see and like try to strip away what you know about the human body, which is going to throw you off because what you think you know is not necessarily real. We tend to like emphasize certain features in our view. We don't have a great intuitive understanding of things like perspective. And we also tend to emphasize, like, we look at eyes and we see like the whites of the eyes, and so to you know, it's why we tend to paint, if we're painting portraits, for example, we tend to paint like chiclets for teeth and eyes that are, you know, too bright white and shine out of a face. Because there's actually all sorts of shadows and other colors interacting there, but we don't, you know, we tend to think symbolically. I'm struggling with the advice to draw things around me, but don't have a lot of non-geometric forms around me, so I needed a subject where the proportions do matter and changes. So a lot of, that's interesting. I don't know what to make, I don't know entirely what to make of that. I am not great at, geometric form. That was my challenge in doing things like drafting. What? Straight lines? But actually a lot of figure drawing and stuff is like breaking things into basic shapes. This needs a little moment to sink into my brain what I'm doing, so I'm actually going to pull out a little sketchbooky thinger. This has like all sorts of different papers in it, and it's really interesting, but I've not quite figured out how to make the most of it. Anyway, I started drawing figures that had interesting forms, i.e. non-geometric. Yeah, so what were the things that I learned? So there's the line of action tutorial, which I think might be what you're referencing as like the advice, where you have a figure and it's like, okay, well, you draw a basic, you know, line of action around the spine, and then maybe you extend it to like, oh, well, then there's the legs, you know, here I've got a figure squatting. And then you have the line of the hips goes this way, and the line of the shoulders, then you have my head. So you have a head at the end. Okay, now I've got a like stupid little blob. The other thing that I'd learned is if you have a waist, so you draw a waist around here, the line of the shoulders is always sort of opposite the line of the hips relative to the waist. So you can sort of draw that, and then you can sort of whatever. So if I'm building a human, you know, at some level I can know what the shoulders are, where the hips are, where the because sometimes either the hips or the shoulders will be obscured. And so if you know what their relative angles are relative to the waist, you can sort of figure out where the obscured parts are. The other thing that was taught to me at the time is to absolutely not do what I'm doing right now, which is take a really thin pen and try to do your figure drawing that way, which I'm definitely very guilty of because that is the materials that I prefer to work with in my studio. However, charcoal and painting or drawing in form. So if you think of more of a volume rather than a line, so the line is just your basic basic shape, and then you can fill in the form around it. Anyway, I was pretty proud. Sorry, what am I doing? Let's not put this back. That's not what I'm working on. I am working on this. Hi, Paolo. How are you? It is useful for inventing poses, which honestly I've not done very much of, because I'm, you know, maybe that's the next, the next frontier after I, stop feeling like portraits and life drawing are, forever challenge that I'm catching up on. Then I may tackle then my next thing may be tackling, what's it? Sorry. Oh my goodness. Sorry, my brain is stalling. Holy shit. Yeah, my next thing might be tackling creating poses, creating characters, in more than just a doodle here and there way. All of this is stuff that I just sort of tackle because I feel like I don't actually have a deep interest in ever painting people as a, you know, as part of my main art practice. I do some figures in like urban sketching, which is sort of a part of my practice, I guess. But I tend not to be too interested in painting people as a, you know, I doubt that I'm ever going to be doing much in the way of painting people for like exhibition pieces like these. Like I'm probably still going to stick to, plants, lichen, whatever. Like that's kind of my niche and I like it. But I feel like, as you were saying about like drawing stuff around you, it helps shape how you see the world to tackle different subjects. And people are a particularly interesting challenge because as humans we have certain predispositions to seeing things around us a certain way, to interpreting our reality. And that is, nowhere is that more obvious than in seeing people. It's why painting portraits has these like particular challenges. And so I try to make a point of including some of that in my practice always. Always doing some amount of painting humans. Because it forces me to challenge some of those preconceptions about how things look, how I see the world. And I think it allows me to bring that back to my regular practice. Anyway, I guess my point was with understanding like basic structure, it also means that in short poses, either because you're painting someone on the move, like urban sketching, people are moving around and you're just painting, you know, somebody's sitting here as long as they're sitting here, or they're walking towards you on a sidewalk and you just paint their basic shape. It allows you to do that quickly if you can just sort of, okay, here's their basic line of action, here's their hips, shoulders, waist, you know, they're thick or they're thin, and here's a head, where you can then get that information out in 10 seconds. And I'm definitely not, you know, great at it, but it is something that's served me well for things like urban sketching, and also for, yeah. And I'm trying to do the same thing with portraits in terms of like Loomis method, understanding the basic shapes of the head and the basic forms. So it's not like, okay, what am I seeing here in that nose, and try to like break out of like, you know, squinting at people all the time, like, oh, okay, well, what, you know, measure this and what have you. Everything is good with me. Yeah, I'm having a good day. I have some medical stuff that I had hoped I was past, but apparently never lucky. But we persevere. So because this is, again, this is on aqua board, I'm putting down a lot more pigment without detail than I might otherwise, because I can scratch detail back out. And what I'm trying to do is get the vibrancy right. Like I'm trying to get some areas of bright yellows and greens blocked in. And then I can scrape some stuff out to make things appear out of it, but it's a little bit harder to get that vibrancy in afterwards. So I'm trying to make sure that I have enough of this bright yellow, and then other things can get more muted as they come out further out. So that's what's going on there. And then it'll get details darkened in as well as lifted out. And then the brightest highlights will actually be scraped in, like with a blade, and then painted back out. And then there will be some ink, and so it's actually going to be a really, really detailed thing that's happening here. But thank you. How are you, Barbara? Actually, I need, there, this, I made this yellow and I did not want to make it yellow. That's going to be fun to scrape out. Wait one moment. So this is aquaboard, so although this is Nicolazzo yellow that would usually not come out of anything, if I've got a sufficiently strong convincer, I can get it out. So this is actually going to be more of a blue tone. Here, and I want this like that. In a moment, I'm going to get a finer brush to do some of these details. will do. It's interesting. I don't even know what this brush is. Currently nap trapped with my daughter sleeping on me. Aww. I am good. Mostly good. I have some fun health stuff. Not fun, but you know, we do what we have to do to deal with this coming week that I'm not looking forward to, but in general, pretty good. So in here, I'm lifting out the shapes of the little fertile fronds here. One done. I'm getting quicker with these drawings. The first one took me 2 hours, now about 30 minutes. That's good. Oh, okay, what if I'm gonna lift out some stuff here. There's just a little bit too much pigment. Yeah, oh, actually like how that looks just on its own. Okay, that's cool. Okay, what if I throw in some of this with this guy? So I have some, ooh, that's gonna be bright, bright. A little bit more. A little bit more. Oh, here, let's bring this a little closer so you can see what I'm doing. I watched well-timed videos, and one of the advice really resonated with me. People think if they can't draw it, then somehow painting it will be easier. Yes, the rushing it thing, that for me, that often plays out in like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing, so I'm gonna just like start on real paper. I'm just gonna start painting it. I'm like, you kind of need to understand your subject, whatever you're doing, and your composition. You kind of need to know what you're doing before you start. Otherwise, things are not gonna go well for you. Okay, let's see. If I start, yeah. Okay, maybe I should stop with the ink right now because this is still wet and I'm just picking up clay with my pen, which is a good way to kill it. Let's stop adding ink and instead work on getting some more of these values a bit further out. Oop. See. Sorry, I need to go rescue a dog. Be right back. Welcome. I need to Yep. Those and here. I am going to do a quick little recording here. Start here. This surface really weirds me out. It almost feels like digital where sorry, this surface that I'm working on, because yes, it is very much a like, oh yeah, I can just erase whenever I want, which is it is very weird. Very, very weird. I agree. But I kind of love it. The truth is, it may actually be more similar in some ways to oil. Like if you see oil painters, they scrape things away all the time. And it isn't quite like digital where you can just like, I try something and then if I just want to erase that layer, I can just erase that layer and go back to a previous thing. Like you can scrape things away, but you're going to be scraping a whole area and, you know, to get the it's more like pushing too. Like when I push things away, I get like an edge. It is definitely very different from paper. But unlike working with opaque media where I, you know, add white as a color, and then always feel like a perpetual beginner who can't figure out how to do things. This has sort of, you know, it was very different to begin with, and I was quite put off by it for a moment. But I've kind of quickly gotten to the point where, like, no, it is different, but I like it, and I know how to work it, and it is... So yeah, this makes me a little bit conflicted because I don't necessarily want to love a proprietary surface, but it does have some neat Anyway, so here, like, I'm adding the texture of the little bryophytes, the little mosses, and as you can see, like, when is the focus good enough for this? That I can get like little, like the pigment gets pushed around. I can zoom in on this if it's difficult to see. But it creates an edge where I am pushing it. So that's if I push away with a brush. This is Aquaboard. Aquaboard's been what I've been playing with for the past, few months for a bunch of my pieces. So it's a clay board that has like a cold press sort of bumpy surface. It's also aerated, so there are little gaps in the clay itself. So it is very lightly absorbent. And you can pretty much lift right back up to clear white if you scrub enough. And even without scrubbing, you can easily lighten things up by just scraping away with a brush. And then you can also use a sharp implement to cut into it to get a sharp white. So this allows me to put down a lot more pigment than I would otherwise without having to use something like masking fluid to retain my whites, because I'm painting in watercolor, but I can, as you can see here, just lift back out to near white without without having to preserve those. So it allows me to block in fairly large areas at once and get the overall shape without having to worry about things like masking fluid, which I hate. So whenever I would usually, like whenever there's like small areas of highlight in a larger, darker area, I tend to paint around. I do a lot of, I mean, I guess it's called negative painting. That wording always seems weird to me. Like, what do you mean negative? But apparently I'm the master of it, so okay, great. But it allows me to push around watercolor paint and bring out highlights a lot more. Another vellum is a similar surface actually that allows you to do a lot of this. I might try vellum again, although getting my hands on vellum, on good vellum, might be challenging. But I might give that another shot, see about getting some vellum, and whether that works similarly. When I first tried vellum, I really loved it. And then I tried it again, and it was kind of the opposite thing. And I tend to work fairly wet, so vellum can't take more than one wet wash. You put a second wet wash on it and it comes right up. And so I wonder whether vellum laminated to panel or something might likewise be a thing like that. I have a whole lot of curiosity going about different surface preparations, which I've hinted at a little in some discussions, but haven't really had a chance to fully explore. The other issue with vellum is that it is extremely expensive to get for anything but really tiny pieces. So yeah. Little unsure about whether that's something that I really want to be encouraging myself with. But yeah, I've been having some... The truth is, I'm painting on panels anyway. So the advantage of paper, of being super portable, and is a little bit lost, because I prefer to have my panels assembled before I start painting, so that I don't have to have the worry of trying to laminate a paper to panel, and sometimes the lamination doesn't go well, and I would rather that not be after I've spent, you know, 100 hours on a piece. So especially for larger pieces, it is preferable for me if the lamination is done beforehand, at which point I'm painting on a panel anyway, and so the general advantages of paper are somewhat lost, which has opened me up a lot to, okay, well, what if I play with different surfaces? I have Schminke's ammonia-free masking fluid in my Jackson's basket. Some RS replacement paints, but I'm still waiting. Is the Roman Schmalz sale still on? Go bad on the shelf and crumbles when you remove it from the paper. Cures on the paper but doesn't cure in the bottle? Magic. I think I believe it. In my mind it doesn't. Till 29th. So maybe. Okay. Because I got a Jackson's email saying, you know, last chance yesterday for the sale. And so I had this moment of like, do I want to order stuff, because I kind of want to get the empty mini tin. Because, you know, of course I do. And yes, this would be more prone to getting damaged by like water on it, except that then I put, once I'm done, I treat it with cold wax medium to adhere it to the paper, not paper, to adhere it to the surface. And then that cures to, I mean, it's an oil painting medium. It cures to like a hard wax. Okay, and then this is a dead pen that I just used to scrape out highlights, like so. So you can see, like, then if I want something that's like a bright white highlight, because I also want some other details that are going to be like orange. Here, get some orange and some of this. So this is just a little bit blunter than an X-Acto blade. So I'm basically using it as a knife to cut in the brightest highlights. Now this you can do on paper too, not with this pen. You would need an actual blade, but I do actually cut in highlights on paper as well. You just use an X-Acto blade and it cut in like very, very fine hair highlights. Plein air sale till the 5th. Ah, okay, well that's cool. So presumably the little plein air thing also. Apparently the Urban Sketchers Symposium is on right now in Poznan, Poland. I'd love to attend one of those someday. They sell out so quickly though. Buy a new bottle of this relatively... Yeah, so I mean, generally, most masking fluid requires frequent upgrading, but you know, happy to try some new stuff. I mean, to a point. I try to avoid using masking fluid wherever possible because I just hate it, but that's a me problem. And then there's some so here, let's see. And then here we can have 4. It may go dry less in the bottle, like it may have a longer shelf life than some other. I mean, ultimately, yes, if it's sensitive to air and it comes in a bottle, it's going to get exposed to some amount of air. And it is going to degrade to some extent. I think there's a, logic. It follows that, yeah, it will degrade at least a little over time. But maybe less? Is that so? Really? Hi. Hello. Hi. Hi. Are you so loud? Are you here to help with my live stream? Come here, little critter. Oh, 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 yeah. Really? Really? Okay. Okay, how about we put you here, Not on top of my artwork. No, 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 no. Where are you going? Not into my water either. Good boy. Good boy. Okay, what if we do... I know, you're a silly little goof. You're a silly little goof. And we can zoom out, Maybe we can zoom out? There? Wait, sorry. No, we can zoom all the way out. No, no, no. Yeah. Oh, it's going to be difficult because this is on manual focus, so you're going to be on rather kind of out of focus unless I adjust to your face. No, you're not, oh my goodness, how am I gonna? Yeah, hi, hello, sorry, hello, oh, 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 you're so ridiculous, you're such a ridiculous little baby, you're such a ridiculous little baby. This is Neuron. He's been around a lot longer than Ember, but now that I have a dog, he is less prone to just invading my studio. Apparently he's delegated that. And he's off. He used to just come in and insist on being in every shot. But he does that less now. I have to go back to, yeah, let's put this here. Let's try to manual focus onto there. Is that more? No, that's less. Let's get this nice and sharply focused. Are you okay? Hard to tell. Okay, that'll probably do. And back to alright, cool. Cool, cool. That can go over there. That can go over there. Here we go. Yeah, yep. Life is much better with kitties. Okay, let's see. Where's my reference? Bring my reference back. There we go. Okay. What am I doing here? Take this and there. Then I wanted to bye. Have a nice weekend. I'll see you next week, if not earlier. So then put a little bit in here and there, there. Okay, this is starting to come together. And then this can start Alright, what time is it? Okay, I've been going for about 3 hours. It is no longer a question. Which one is a palette? Yeah, it is coming together where this actually seems to be something. It's a little unclear yet what exactly it is. Although in this case, that was kind of the point. I think it will always be a little bit ambiguous exactly what you're looking at. But it will be very detailed, but it'll be sort of like abstract detailed, which is kind of neat. Anyway, I think I need to go stretch and be off, so I think this is it for me for this week, and I'll carry on next week. And by that point, this thing should be done as well, so I'll be able to show that off once I'm done. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye. End stream.